Okay, so for a long time now, the human race has viewed itself as the center of the world. Sure, there are other animal and plant species all around the globe, but everything was put here for us, and so we can just take whatever we want. But the Earth is finite. It has ecosystems that can be destroyed, and its resources are depletable. From up here, it looks pretty good. Sure, there's still water in the oceans, there's still clouds in the sky, but if we take a closer look, we'll see that there's actually some serious problems. You see, for the last 7,000 years or so, the Earth has been experiencing a boiling frog effect. Basically, when you throw a frog into boiling water, it'll jump out immediately. But if you put it in comfortable water and you let the heat slowly turn up, it'll actually sit there and allow itself to be boiled. Well, we are this boiling frog, and for a long time now, the heat's been turning up. So what was it that actually turned the heat on? What lit the flame? Well, like I said, about 7,000 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, an agricultural revolution changed the future of the human race. Essentially what happened is humans gained the capability of growing more and more food to feed a growing population. Well, as the population grew, more people were competing for less resources in a small area of land. So what happens when more people start competing for less? Well, they begin to fight. Between 5,000 and 3,000 BC, the population of the Earth doubled to 50 million people in only 2,000 years. Now, between 3,000 and 1400 BC, the population would double again, this time to 100 million people. The Bronze Age allowed for better weapons, it allowed for more durable currency, and it allowed for an expansive network of trade routes, which helped us spread resources even faster. The next doubling of the world's population would take only 1,600 years. From 1400 to 0 BC, city-states became nations and nations became empires. As these empires started to grow and they started to encroach on one another, larger armies were necessary. Military leaders became the first political figures. Those who stood in the way were either assimilated or they were taken over. As more and more money was needed to fund these empires, we see taxes being imposed. Those who can't pay taxes have their land seized. For the first time in history, we see a serious problem with wealth distribution. The poor, poverty becomes a serious concern. In cities such as Babylon, even as they became more and more complex and even as they became more magnificent, they had to deal with issues such as disease because of overcrowding of the poor. As less and less resources became available, famine became a recurring problem. Between 0 to 1200 CE, we saw the fall of the Roman Empire, we saw the First and Second Crusades, and we saw the thrusting of the entire Western world into the Dark Ages. During this period, technological advancement almost came to a complete halt. Nevertheless, the world's population managed to double yet again, this time to 400 million people, and this time in only 1,200 years. But the next doubling of the world's population was even faster. In 500 years, it would grow from 400 million people to 800 million. This is the time when countries were sending explorers around the world laying claim to already inhabited lands. Indigenous peoples that were still living sustainable lifestyles were either assimilated or conquered. So the slave trade became a very important tool to increase production and to move resources around the globe and extract resources at a faster rate. Between 1700 and 1900 AD, the Industrial Revolution made it even easier than ever to continue to extract resources and to produce things. In addition, because the Industrial Revolution allowed developed countries to raise their standard of living, for the first time we see resources being moved from underdeveloped countries to developed ones. During this time period, the population of the world would double, now in the billions. It's reached 1.5 billion people. Between 1900 and 1960, we have the first two world wars, we have the first global economic collapse, we have the largest genocides in history, and we have the Earth's population increasing again, this time to 3 billion people. Now it's doubling in only 60 years. So between 1960 and the year 2000, everything's okay, we stop this nonsense, and there's no more issues, right? Well, wrong, that's not the case. During this time period, we had another agricultural revolution, which allowed the Earth's population to double yet again, this time to 6 billion people, and this time it only took 40 years. So what's the problem? We're feeding all the people that are being born. What's the big deal? Well, this new agricultural revolution relies on petroleum gas, it relies on natural gas fertilizers, it relies on oil-based pesticides and hydrocarbon irrigation systems. Right now, though, in the US, we're using less than 10% of our energy, or less than 10% of our energy comes from sustainable sources. And of that, over a third comes from hydropower, which relies on our diminishing water resources. So This chart here actually tells us some of the resources that we're running out of. Silver is going to be gone in 24 years. Tin will be gone in 25 years. Gold in 40 years. And copper in about 55 years. I mean, we really, really have opened up Pandora's box here. And if we don't do something about it soon, there's going to be a serious problem. A recent report released by the science journal Nature had 22 scientists found that we're reaching an environmental tipping point. A tipping point where it'll be so catastrophic that we won't be able to recover from it. It found that in the year 1700, 7% of the ice-free land on Earth was used for farming. But today, that number has climbed to 43%. We use over 50% of the Earth's fresh water, and it's getting worse and worse. Now, those of you who know the Pandora story know that after Pandora released all the evils into the world, there was still one thing remaining inside the box. When she looked inside and saw what it was, she decided to open the box one last time to let hope into the world. She saw it as mankind's last chance to avert the destruction ahead. Well, that brings us to the idea of the Pandora Project. The Pandora Project is not simply an idea for advancing sustainable living. The Pandora Project's goal is to change the actual way that people think about the world we live in. It's to create a paradigm shift. Now, the way we plan on doing this is by building a sustainable community that is so self-sufficient, that is so environmentally conscious, and so comprehensive that it cannot be ignored. Research is going to be a very important part of the Pandora Project, and through research we hope to advance innovation and sustainability. Education is also a very important project as we hope to plant the seeds for the future. Once the initial campus is built, it will serve as a launching point for additional projects around the world. Now, I don't have time to take you through every last aspect of the project, but I would like to give you a brief overview of some of its major components. Now, the initial main campus will sit on approximately 400 acres near a freshwater stream or river. Residences will be built of sustainable materials and will seek to reduce environmental footprints. At less than $9 a square foot in building costs, this hobbit hole design is an especially attractive one. It's built from reclaimed wood and the very soil that was used to excavate for its foundation. And for those of you who aren't into living in tree houses or hobbit holes, there also will be more contemporary designs exhibited. Now, all of the homes and buildings at the Pandora Project are going to use water reclamation systems. For those of you who aren't familiar with water reclamation systems, essentially, water that is used in sinks is used again to water indoor plants. After that, it's used a third time in toilets, and then once it's filtered, it's used a fourth time to water outdoor plants and gardens. Now, these outdoor gardens will appear all over the Pandora Project. They won't just serve an aesthetic purpose. They'll actually be used to grow important herbs, things that can be used for organic pesticides, teas, seasonings, and the like. Permaculture will form the basis of the agriculture of the Pandora Project. For those of you who aren't familiar, permaculture abandons the row crop method of agriculture and replaces it with systems based on natural ecologies. So instead of growing one crop on a given acre of land, you'll grow numerous crops that all develop symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationships. This process helps to increase the efficiency at which plants grow. It's more labor intensive, but you can feed a lot more people on a smaller area of land. The most common form of permaculture that some people are familiar with is the Three Sisters model that a lot of American Indian tribes have adopted. In that system, you see maize growing up as stalks, which provides a structure for beans to grow on. The beans provide nitrogen to the maize and to the squash, which is the third component. And the squash grows along the ground. It blocks sunlight and prevents weeds from growing. There are other models of permaculture, though, besides the Three Sisters one that will be that exists in the world today, and that will be harnessed here at the Pandora Project. Now, chickens and other birds will be used not only for their fertilizer, but also to help reduce pests that would otherwise harm crops. Hydroponic and aeroponic research, which you heard a little bit about earlier, was a very important research component of the project. Hydroponics and aeroponics can help to prevent waste of water and waste of nutrients. It can also help to grow larger, healthier crops. And it can also, it allows for things like vertical farming and cold weather farming. Now, to get crops and things around the Pandora Project, we'll use a system of economically friendly vehicles and paths. For individuals to get around, we'll use a community shared bicycle system, something similar to which you see in a lot of major cities today, popping up all over the place. Excess crops, excess herbs will be sold in storefronts, which is just one of the ways that we're going to help to offset the long-term recurring costs of the project. Another way that we're going to help offset these costs is by selling excess energy back to the grid, and not only back to the grid, but also to passing electric vehicles. Where's this energy going to come from? Well, with the price of solar panels decreasing more than 80% in the last 3 years, solar energy is becoming a very inviting option. Also, wind power is going to be an important option. We're used to seeing these massive three-blade turbines, but there are a lot of rooftop designs that can help to power single buildings. In addition, hydropower will be a very important source of energy because of its dependability. This water barrel, the image on the very left of the screen, is actually it's very cheap to produce. It costs about $300. It floats on top of the water, so it doesn't interrupt fish migration patterns. And the best part is that it produces enough energy to power a single energy efficient house. There are solar and wind powered water pumps that are going to help to provide water and pressure, not only to residences, but also to the fields. Recreational facilities will also be very green. Here we have a gym that actually uses its own workout equipment to create power for the building. And here we have a basketball court that, instead of using the traditional maple or oak flooring, actually uses sustainable bamboo, FSC certified, for its flooring. Access to nature trails will be very important. One of the most important part of the Pandora Project's mission is to bring people back and help them understand natural ecologies, to get them out in the environment. And so access to nature trails will be a very important component of the project. Community building is also very important. A place like this requires a lot of community cooperation. So places like this, community buildings, and also a green amphitheater like this is going to help to provide community space, not only for entertainment, but for meals and other bonding activities. And then last but not least, education is a very, very important part of the project. So some of the things that will be offered will include educational opportunities for children. They can come and do hands-on activities. We want to put on permaculture classes to help spread the word about these other forms of agriculture and get the idea going. Now, does this mean that we all have to dress up like hippies and go live on a commune somewhere? No. As I said before, this is only the main campus. There will be other models developed, an urban one being probably one of the most important, as you heard earlier. Urban life is going to be the future of the human race. In fact, there is a mixed-use development already being built, part of it's already operational, in Victoria, British Columbia, that provides a very convincing argument that an urban model is possible. This is Dockside Green. It's a multi-use development community, and it is the first LEED Platinum development of its type. It incorporates a lot of the ideas that I've talked about, including building from sustainable materials. Here you see bamboo flooring. They incorporate wind power and solar power. They have green roofs. They use green walls. These are solar-powered LED lights that are lighting a bike path. There are a lot of bike paths around the development to encourage healthy living and to discourage people from using carbon emission-creating vehicles. The entire development uses a water reclamation system that reuses water in numerous different uses. They incorporate nature into the design and into all the elements. And in fact, a big part of the project was restoring the shoreline where the development sits back to its natural state. And this is part of that restoration plan that's being carried out. In addition, they generate 100% of their energy from biomass recycling. There's composting all over. The insulation and carpeting is made from sustainable materials. The wood used in the structure is all harvested sustainably, and it's built close to public transportation to, again, discourage people from using those carbon-emitting vehicles. So it doesn't incorporate all the aspects of the Pandora Project, such as the food production and the community building aspects, but you can see it paints a pretty convincing argument that an urban model is possible. In conclusion, I just want to say that the universe is a big place. There might be a lot of planets out there just waiting for us to find them, but right now we only have one planet, and that's the planet Earth. And if we don't start taking care of it, then there are going to be some serious problems down the road. The mission of the Pandora Project is to create sustainable, self-sufficient, cooperatively owned and operated communities modeled on the relationships found in natural ecologies. and dedicated to a respect for all life. As we reestablish our relationship with our natural surroundings and revitalize this culture of the past, we will embrace the sciences and technologies of the future to develop new models and innovations. The result should be a place where nature is understood and appreciated, not just as an expendable resource to be dominated and conquered, but as an extension of our very selves, an interdependent web of life that we are passionate towards, responsible for, and interminably a part of. Thank you very much.